In our last discussion on a call to citizens, we talked about how incumbents have rigged the system to assure their own reelection. Now, that might not be such a big deal if you and I believed they were actually doing their job, but of course we don't, and we haven't for a long while. In a recent poll on the level of public trust in 30 different professions, national politicians tied for last place with car salesmen. A remarkable 7% of those polled found politicians trustworthy. 7%! And the most recent polls have the American people approving specifically of the performance of Congress in numbers as low as 11%. Okay, so now that we're clear as can be on just how unpopular the Congress really is, would it be a good idea to establish limits on how long members of Congress should be allowed to serve? Well, I'll tell you this, if we did establish term limits and we elected a lot less career politicians and a lot more citizen legislators, we would create a Congress in good position to make hard decisions with little fear of the consequences, because they'd have a limit on how long they'd be in Washington, and they'd want to return to their normal lives, their day jobs, as soon as possible anyway, instead of feathering their nest for as many years as they could get away with it. Wouldn't it be a reasonable proposition to limit House members to 6 terms and 12 years and senators to 2 terms and the same 12 years? In any other walk of life, after all, if a person can't satisfy his boss, in this case us, and accomplish what he's paid to do in a dozen years, he will have long since been removed from his job anyway. So what we need is what it seems like we're now ready for. We find ourselves in an environment where people are rediscovering the Constitution and the revolutionary principles that led to it. And so we're ready for a new Washington, populated more and more by regular citizens, people of accomplishment and integrity from various walks of life in our own communities, people who have no stake other than service to the country they love. And we should be ready to establish reasonable limits on how long they can serve. Let me ask you this one question. Could it really be any worse than what we have now? We are one generation away from either a continuation of the status quo, electing career politicians who are further and further out of touch with our lives as they continue their ruinous spending, or we're one generation away from a term-limited Congress with a growing number of credible citizen legislators committed to reversing our course and to restoring the fullness of freedom.